but I want to address the second question, and that is what about high school. One of the questions that I received is, what time does Sonlighter start and end each day? If you're on this and you have a high schooler, what time do you start and end each day? Everybody's answer is probably going to be different, and my answer is different for different students. We all, I have one student who really is just, he is very motivated with a checklist, and he is very on top of, he's a morning person, very much more of a morning person. And then I have others that are not morning people. And so I basically have a mix. And so I do allow that the one that is more of a morning person, he gets up early before the others. And so he will start, here we have one that starts at 10 and is done in about 4 to 5 hours. Okay, great. Hi, Sunny. And then, yeah, and our son, he will start sometimes in the 7 o'clock hour or 8 o'clock hour, one of those. We're generally getting up 8:30, starting somewhere in there. But everybody has a different time frame. My oldest son, who's now in college, is getting up now at 4:45 for cross-country practice, which is amazing to me. But in high school, he was not doing that. He slept in and got his good rest, and then he would start his day later than my guys do now. So it just varies. But you can definitely make a schedule and stick to your schedule, for what works for you. I would say that we do, really it's taking right now, we may get more efficient, but right now as we're getting a running start, I actually had my sons write down their time just because I was curious what they were spending. I just took a little piece of paper like this, and my guys wrote their time for the week on here. So this is my son Ethan's. He wrote his, and his is very neat. He has the most neat handwriting. I'm going to show you. It looks like this. Can you see that? It looks sometimes like a typewriter. I don't know if you can tell how neat it looks. But anyway, he wrote his subjects and how much time he spent on each subject, which was not really what I asked for. I asked for the total hours. But anyway, I can add. So that's a good. But basically, we take that time and we, it's different each day. On Mondays, we do a co-op, which actually goes a little bit longer. So they are there for 8 hours, which is a long time, and it's a big commitment. So they have then, I'll allow them to take that 2 hours on another day and roll that over. And so, it averages out. So we do have some days that are lighter than others, and then some days that are, roughly 5-6 hours, something like that. So, another question, what do Sonlighters do to record high school grades by subject? And I'm going to run through these really quickly. So Algebra 1 comes with, for Saxon, everybody's is going to be different. Again, there's going to be some differences here. But these test forms here, this is, I grade my guys' work each night. I circle what they miss, and they correct that, hand it back to me, and I correct that. They eventually get every problem right. So it's more, for me, homework grade is more, we do it until they get it, until they understand the problem. And if they don't get it right, we walk through every step. So that's how I do math. We work through all of it. And so I don't grade I correct it, but I don't put a letter grade, a number grade on homework. I do grade every test, and I use this testing schedule that comes with their test booklet, and I just write their test score on right here and keep up with it here, and average these whenever I get ready to do their grades. And they get a grade for their test. They get a test grade, and then their homework grade if they were not to do homework, but I make them do their homework, so they do their homework. So and they have to correct it. And so yeah, that we just don't really have a choice about that. But that's because I'm the mom and I make the rules, and that's how we do it. So they are getting a lot of practice, and I will say we finished more math than I did. I taught in public school, never finished a textbook, never finished anything, but a full entire book for the year, or if we had certain standards, there's only so much time in the year, and there's all of the things that you have to get in the public school system. So I cover more ground homeschooling, and we moms tend to do that. So that's how I do it. I mainly put those grades, and I keep record of their test grades, and then at the end of the semester is when one of the questions was, how often do you average grades? And I do at the end of the semester, but if there's ever a subject that one of my guys is struggling in, then I will definitely look at their grades and average them out earlier in the, maybe by quarter, or even if it's a few, several weeks in, I'm realizing, okay, wait a minute. Then I will go back and look and just make sure I don't let him get, if he starts not doing well on a test, I'll go back and make sure we're getting corrections and he's understanding, and we're spending the time to make sure that he understands. I think you said science was pretty easy, but if anybody else has the question, you were saying it was easy to grade, but if, for science, there's a, module like this in Apologia. This is, physical science. So I do the test, and then, there isn't, a grading sheet like I had in the other. So, here we go. Here's the test. I'm sorry. Test right here. Module 1. Looks like this. So what I would do here is I would just go on the inside of the book on this page over here somewhere maybe, and write the student's initials, and then, because I'm going to reuse some of these, and then write their, module 1 test, module 2 test, that kind of thing. And then I keep up with it with my guides that I keep in the top of my, you can't see it, it's behind me, my little rolly cart. In the top cart, I keep my books that I check. So they're math books, teacher guides, and that kind of thing. So I keep all of that, and so it's just right here when I need to do their grades. For literature, I marked a couple of things here. The one I'm looking at is 430 American literature, and I spiral bound this, by the way. I love spiral binding. You can do this for like $5 or so at an office supply place if you're ever interested. You just have to do it at a time that you can be without your instructor's guide for however long it takes them to get it. So a couple of days. So I always make sure I do it in this, whenever I'm not going to need it right away. For here under the writing instruction in the notes, it says, not every assignment requires new writing. You won't end the year with 180 sloppy assignments. It's talking about how they're not writing every day. Instead, they're practicing, but they're refining instead of doing 180 separate sloppy assignments. Instead, you will edit and rewrite for the majority of assignments. At the end of the year, you should have a portfolio of about 12 polished pieces. So those pieces would be the things that I would keep that grading. And again, I would keep maybe on my title page here. This is one I'm using this year. So I would just, on the title page here, is where I would write those grades. Actually, I think this is one for next year. Anyway, in the back, your scope and sequence is important. I would look through here and kind of see the assignments. This is in section 3 of your instructor's guide. If you haven't found this, I love the scope and sequence. It helps me keep on track. And I go through these assignments, and I can kind of see when writing, when we're, it's kind of divided out here. You can see how long the travel essay is going to take, how many weeks you're going to be covering that. How many weeks you're going to be doing this essay on community, memoir essay. So then you have the editing of that. And it's just kind of good to kind of see the flow of the year and where you are within that flow. And all 36 weeks are there. I know it's too small to see, but, and then you can see the humor draft and edit, and then the research paper, and how long that takes. That takes several weeks. So you can kind of plan ahead for those kind of things and know what you're gonna have ahead of you. And then any of the assignments in the, that as you go through the literature, depending on what level you're doing, I'm thinking in J might be, I think J might be the one that someone mentioned. Language Arts J, I think that's still, if I can remember correctly, it's still going to have before you have, it's not the type that has the parent guide and the student guide. In high school levels, you do have parent guide and student guide. So in level J, you're not going to have that just at that level just yet. So at that level, you're going to have the grammar assignments and those kind of things that you can grade, and the what you need to grade them. The teacher's guide is like in the instructor's guide notes, you're going to have the answers to their student sheets. And so anyway, that's important to know. Also, I wanted to mention an elective that we're doing this year is psychology. And look at this monster of a book. Okay, this is all years. It's not just a one semester course. When I was in high school, psychology was one semester. This is a full year course, and it is challenging. I got actual permission from my we have to have an umbrella school where I live, and so our umbrella school gave us permission to make this honors psychology. So on his transcript it will say honors psychology. Sonlight's course is so great. I think everybody should take it at some point towards the end of high school. I do think it's a really great course, but the tests are very long and comprehensive. So I kept flipping, and I was like, oh wow, this is super long. And so you have to make a decision about what you're going to require. And for the reading, how many for history or for language arts or literature, I'm sorry, how many books are you going to require them to read for the year? If there are books you definitely want them to read, or maybe you're going to let them choose from a part of the list. Maybe you're going to list 10 books and you want them to read 7 of them, and they get to make a choice. I think that's something that is common, that if you see that you're not going to finish everything for the year, then that is certainly something that is reasonable, because we're reading a lot of great literature. But if you know your student, and you know what's going to be best for your year, so you can make those kind of judgment calls. And I think it's really important. I've been able to look just through the years of homeschooling at what my umbrella school requires, what Sonlight has and suggests, and then I make a choice. And sometimes my choice is going to be maybe more than what the umbrella school requires, and maybe I have to meet their requirements, but often what we do might be more than what they require. They're going based on suggestions that they get from the guidelines that they have from their private school, they might be reading 4 or 5 books for the year. So it's certainly different than what Sonlight offers, and has for the list for Sonlight for the year. So basically you make the decision about how you're going to do grading. For history, I will just tell you that the most important thing for me is that they're learning, and that I have different goals. Every student has different goals. I want them to be able, when they finish what we're doing, for example, recently I got on a plane, and there was a young man from South Korea, and we had studied in Sonlight F about Eastern Hemisphere. And just on the plane, I was talking with him and talking about the DMZ and asking him questions, how far he was from that. And he had been in the military, and he was blown away that I had any knowledge of South Korea, where he had been. And he said, I have not met one American who knows anything about where I have just lived. And that's really hard coming home. So he said, I think you were supposed to be in this seat next to me, because this is so encouraging. And it was really great. We had a conversation about it. And he was an American kid from a really small town, but it really made his day that somebody knew something about where he had just been and the experience he'd had, just a little bit of knowledge about the culture he'd been immersed in for 2 or 3 years. And so anyway, that's the kind of, I want my guys to really understand and learn about the world, about history, about people and cultures. And sometimes when we're focused on grading solely, then we lose that. And I know in high school for me, I was in an honors class in English, and I was actually chatting with a friend that was in that class now, and she's a high school English teacher. And basically, I had to read Jane Eyre for that class, and I never made it through the book. I tried like crazy to finish that book, and I just couldn't. I didn't have the stamina. I didn't have, I almost finished it, but I never completely finished it. So I, got through the assignments. I still made a decent grade, but I didn't get the gist. I missed so much of what was involved because I was going for the grade, and that's what I had to do. I had to write all of these note cards, and they had to have these certain elements. And so I spent all of my time doing that, tedious work of, getting my stack of note cards that we had to turn in for this honors class. And I missed, the whole overarching thing of what we were trying to do in the course. So for me, I want my guys to, my guys always finish the books that I require for them to finish. Well, I will say they generally finish, and if they don't, then I do, their grade reflects that. With my son that started psychology, we ended up, he had a half credit for this, my oldest that did this. He had a half credit. I did not award him a full credit for the year because he did not do a full credit of work for this subject. So he did do lots of other subjects and did amazing at those, but I made his grade reflect what he did. And I hope I've answered the questions that you had about high school. You talked about completing history and science in the same day. That was another specific question that you asked about. And I know I did level J last year, and the reading is significant. I'm thinking of these books. If we generally did this science the history of science, the history part, we did the reading together, and there might be several pages, and if we couldn't finish all of it, I might have them, read the last part independently, and then we would pick up the next day reading it together. I don't know if you're doing it independently or together. I think you were doing it together because while you were reading together, you wanted the third grader to have what he was doing. So, I would say kind of evaluate if you could kind of set a time and just say, okay, we have this much time to dedicate to this. And if there's any left over, then they're going to need to finish that for homework. They're going to have to finish that reading on, maybe a couple pages at the end that they finish. And then you discuss it quickly to be sure they got the gist of what was going on and that they can carry on into the next chapter. So I hope that's helpful. That's one thing that you can do. It's up to you. I've done science experiments that we couldn't fit in on a Saturday. Those sometimes worked out better. It's totally up to you. I don't know. Is there anybody else who has any tips on fitting in all the history and science on the same day? I think in general, we were talking about high school on that one, but with any level, if you are lacking in time to do the science reading aloud, then I do think that it's beneficial sometimes to let them go ahead and read some of that independently. And the same with history, history or science, any of the reading that you need to do. I generally try to start it out with them, and then if I can't finish it, if we have other things and it would make sense for them to do that independently in the evening or in their independent time in the next morning before we get to the time where we're going to, do the next part, pick up with the next day's lesson, then I would have them do that independently. So I hope that's helpful. I'm so sorry I went so long, but those were a lot of great questions. So thank you for participating. I'm so glad to see you all. I think Nicaragua, Kansas, I think we said Canada, and then Massachusetts and Colorado. And I'm trying to see if I can move this and my finger's getting in the video. Okay. Thank you guys for stopping in, and I really appreciate it. I pray for you guys that you're having a great start to your year and that you're encouraged and that you come here and ask questions and get some encouragement along the way. So thank you. You all have a great day.